All right. So I just want to thank you again for making some time to be here. And this is actually for everyone that had registered, as well as those that couldn't make it on today's event. I know it's 1 week, like prior to the holidays. So your time's so valuable. We'll go ahead and record this and also share our next live Q&A and webinar with you. So I'll just start by introducing myself. I'm Loren, I'm a nurse practitioner, and actually in my PhD, which was really focused on the gut microbiome of preterm infants, I stumbled upon this issue that was preventing women from continuing to breastfeed. And the reason why this was personally so important to me is I was very passionate about preventative modalities and basically how do you make them accessible to the underserved. And so in my work with primary care, I was seeing a lot of the protocols that we follow as clinicians often are catching the patient after they already have chronic disease development. And if we really look at the very start of life, what we can do to move the needle forward the most and give the next generation the best possible start, that's what caught my interest when I began to look at the immunobiology of breast milk. And I was really fortunate, basically, to work with one of the global feeding experts, Dr. Britt Pados, and it was her research that actually really compelled me to do something about this issue that we discovered with current bottles. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a moment. But first, I'll tell you a little bit about our journey to date. So I was in the final year of my PhD program and was like, okay, how do we protect the preterm infant population? And I was looking specifically at the fatalities that were occurring from these imbalances of gut bacteria. And so I applied for a grant from the National Science Foundation because what I discovered is the one thing that we can actually control to prevent those fatalities is give that baby breast milk for longer. And so I was really curious, like, what is happening in the practice setting? I wasn't working in the neonatal unit that's actually preventing these nurses and these moms from giving breast milk for at least minimum 6 months, which is what the World Health Organization recommends. And I'll go ahead and skip forward a little bit. There were a couple of other determinants that actually played a role in healthy microbiome development, but I was really focused on this feeding component because, we can't always control if a baby is left in utero for full term, right? And there is actually placental transmission of commensal or beneficial microbes that go from mom to baby. So the longer that they are in utero, actually the more advantageous to that baby's microbiome development. The second part is gestational age. So it goes in it goes hand in hand, basically, like if the baby is full term and they have spent a longer time colonizing some, not only the placental transfer, but the in utero environment that has beneficial microbes, they're going to be set up for success, basically, with beneficial gut bacteria. The third was mode of delivery. And so we know that women that had emergent cesareans, unfortunately, their babies did not get exposed to the beneficial microbiota that come through a vaginal delivery. And so now we've seen practice basically stepping up quite a bit and having vaginal swabbing or seeding being implemented to transfer some of that good bacteria from the vagina to the baby once they're born. The fourth that we couldn't really control was antibiotic use. So if you have an emergent cesarean and you're going on a prophylactic dose of antibiotics, unfortunately, that does wipe out some of the good bacteria for the baby, but we can't always control if it's necessary or not. So hence why I became really, really curious about supporting our patients to be able to provide breast milk for longer. Because what we actually see is it's the most critical factor to not only correcting dysbiosis or the imbalance of this gut bacteria that leads to necrotizing enterocolitis and sepsis, as well as fatalities. But it also had the most impact later on in life for optimizing epigenetics. And so what I mean by that is basically your 90% microbial DNA. As a human, there's only 10% human DNA. So the way that these microbes basically inform our inflammatory conditions by switching on and off gene expression is really, really interesting, because at the start of life, you basically have the first 3-year window to optimize the type of microbes that live in and on you for the rest of your life, as well as influence the way you eat, think, and function. Does anyone have any questions about that? I'm moderating the question and answer here. I'll keep checking the chat. So the sixth determinant of microbiome development is actually environmental exposure. So what we saw in a meta-analysis back in 2017 was babies that were born in the NICU actually began colonizing their own gut microbiome with some of the microbes associated with the high acuity environment they were born into. So like some MRSA, some C. diff, when they had swabbed the nurse's computer as well as mouse, they found those same bacteria being colonized in the infant's gut. So why this is important to basically pay attention to is it's these early exposures with the environment and with the people that are visiting the baby that help or harm the microbiome. And what we know is that really a signature of healthy microbiome development is high species diversity. So we want to get them out of this kind of like sterilized setting and being touched by more humans to enhance their potential health and well-being. Another determinant that we did see played some role was genetics, but it didn't have as much of an impact. So there were twins and there were multiples that were observed in these studies. And so, yeah, they had some trends, I think probably because of factors 1 and 2 and 3 being similar for mom. But it was really the environmental exposure as well as the feeding that played a greater role in determining those microbial species that live in and on us for the rest of our life. So how do we really move the needle forward then with getting women to get breast milk and prevent NEC and sepsis and fatalities? What do you think? What would some of your thoughts be from your clinical practice? Going back to this roadmap here, this is when the research began. So once I got the grant from the National Science Foundation, I was like, okay, what is the barrier to breastfeeding in this setting? And interviewed over 300 moms, as well as neonatologists and practitioners like ourselves, but who are in constant direct contact with this setting, not just preterm, but all through the first 2 years of feeding. And what we learned from listening to the population is exactly this. Out of hundreds of interviews in North America, as well as paralleled in Nepal, where they have the best breastfeeding rates according to the World Health Organization's goal of minimum 6 months of providing breast milk and up to 2 years, was that nursing moms consistently faced challenges when they were breastfeeding after introducing a standard bottle. They described this as latching frustration. And of course, there are other psychosocial and political factors that really go into whether an environment for supporting breastfeeding is proactive and positive, or if it's actually causing some of those barriers. But where I really wanted to focus our energy and attention with this research is what we can immediately do something about. So because latching frustration was occurring directly after these bottles, and 92% of women that were going back to work, this is around the 3-month maternity leave in the US, I really wanted to get a better handle of what exactly that was made up of. So within latching frustration related to standard bottles, the shape, feel, and flow is nothing like my breast. My baby gets either used to one or the other and really struggles with switching back and forth. So I don't know if you've heard this from any of your patients, but shape and flow were really these enormous determinants, because a baby getting used to this different flow means they're fussy when coming back to breast and often cause more biting, or moms might think that this is a perceived milk supply deficiency. Maybe they're not producing enough, when really the baby's not getting a good deep latch or doesn't have that patience to do so. So then when we broke down a little bit further what lack of support meant to the population in the US, we listened to all these barriers to breastfeeding and really prioritized the challenges necessary to comprehensively support families at each stage of their feeding journey. So we can go into more how our solution roadmap addresses these challenges, but I want to delve a little bit more into when a mom gets basically latching frustration and the baby's biting more, this causes nipple pain for her directly. And what we also saw is that clinicians are, pretty task saturated. As you know, there's a mass exodus basically of our field, according to Forbes in 2025. Many will be leaving because of practice conditions. And so it's really difficult to supply your patient with everything they need to know about holding, about getting a deep latch. And so that's really what we built into the solution roadmap that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. Many of you joined today or had interest in joining because our top tier medical journal publication in Advances of Neonatal Care went out. And this is from December 1st, 2023. And basically what we found from working with our research partner at the University of Southern California, Verdugo Hills Hospital, is that current bottles, going back here to what Dr. Britt Pados had discovered, how fast the milk is flowing out of them is actually costing that hospital system $132,000 per infant. And what that is attributed to is exactly this. This is how fast in milliliters per minute competitor bottles are flowing. And what that means is if you're a preemie, and we know from Dr. Geddes' research out of Australia, who looked at with ultrasound milk transfer from breast to baby, those infants need milk that are in the preterm setting at 2.2 milliliters or under. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with what happens when you fire hose a baby. It leads to bradycardia, apnea. Basically, this choking doubles the length of stay and consult cost, which insurers are smart, and they are like, we are not going to cover the cost of that patient. And often the hospital ends up biting the bullet on that, because a family doesn't have $132,000 to pay for the complications from really fast flowing bottles. So depending on the size of that neonatal unit, that can be about 50 million annually in feeding related costs. Now, I've really cared about basically giving the infant the best start in life, making sure that mom was set up for latching success when she's discharged from the hospital. But this is the dollar value that was really required to get the end decision maker of hospitals to change their minds and to switch from one of these suppliers to what we have designed, which is the very first infant feeding system that is using technology and biomimicry to create the breast in a nipple for the first time since actually bottles were invented in France 200 years ago. And the reason I can confidently say this is we've continued to go through grant funding here. I'll walk through this roadmap. We won innovation awards from insurance companies, from Johnson & Johnson, and then we went on to get the same type of grant that the NSF provides NASA. And that is because of how technically challenging it is. So it's no surprise that this hasn't existed, or that we don't have a better solution until now to be able to give our patients and babies, because it's really difficult to make milk flow under 2.2 milliliters a minute in a bottle nipple at scale. And that's what we had some of the microfluidic experts in the world working on during COVID. They were used to working on rocket ships, and instead they were refining microfluidics in a baby bottle and nipple, which got a lot of jokes from their wives. But here's the result. And from all of that NSF funding, we've actually been recognized, this isn't a maternal health or baby issue anymore. This is a humanity issue. If you cannot help set up the next generation to successfully receive breast milk for at least 6 months of their lives. And so here's where we are consistently able to produce the safest, lowest flow for the preterm population compared to these other bottles that Dr. Britt Pados had studied the flow of. And why this really matters is going back to seamless breast to bottle transitions. So if you're in the neonatal unit and you have to feed with a bottle, I'll just jump ahead to some of my research in Nepal, working with their president of their breastfeeding forum, who reports all the data to the World Health Organization. The single reason in the hospital setting he has been so successful at making sure that women continue to breastfeed once they go home is the nurses there take a tiny spoon and pump milk drop by drop into the preterm baby's mouth. And so we chatted through this, so they're not getting the latching frustration from current bottles. And obviously in the West, we don't have enough healthcare providers to be able to do drop by drop. We really needed an advanced infant feeding system like the natural nipple, designed from biomimicry to safely deliver this flow that nature has designed for us to receive. And that's what we have also seen in our testing is transitioning women to 83% less latching frustration. So that's compared to other bottles. And what that means is if you have to give a bottle and then you want to come back to breast and you want to be the best mom and the best professional you have the freedom to choose to do so and not result in choking, colic, reflux, and more from existing products. The reason I really care about this as a researcher in the microbiome field is, like we discussed, breast milk is the single factor for success that we can control to really set you up for optimized epigenetics. And that's moving forward through the rest of your life. That first 3 years is when we can really set the signature microbiome, but those bacteria continue to work for you or against you for the rest of your life. And they also basically manufacture some key nutrients that are necessary to protect that baby's immune system. As you know, we don't get T cells basically coming through until we're 2 years of age. And so we're really heavily reliant on that crosstalk that's occurring from the duct, the milk duct of the mom and the saliva of the baby. And what that crosstalk is ensuring is that when you do give pumped milk or when you do come back to breast, there is advanced signaling from the baby's saliva and the antigens that are being presented through the mom's milk duct and dictating the exact composition of immune proteins that need to protect that life, that very vulnerable life for the first 2 years of age. And so from a design standpoint, we also made sure to include anti-colic milk ducts here. Obviously, the bottle itself isn't titrating antibodies, but we're letting the mom succeed at breastfeeding. So when she puts pumped milk in the bottle, the baby is still getting those immune benefits. And go ahead and definitely feel free to continue to drop any questions in the chat. I just wanted to speak to some of the testing with women that were beyond preterm infancy. So the inclusion criteria was they had to have already introduced another competitor bottle, which made it statistically even more difficult for them to have latching success after. But I'm really grateful because what we saw is 88% more sleep. So that reduced latching time means that there's less screaming babies on the plane, which is really important for me as a passenger, more sleep for mom and for dad or caregivers. And then 66% felt that they really had relief of some of this pain at breast as well as colic. And 100% of moms recommended this product for other parents. Why I'm talking about the product is basically I wanted to be able to create a tool that makes breastfeeding as easy as possible and makes nursing easier as a profession. And what I saw was that no product on the market actually had been designed, one, by a female, and two, the CEOs and these advanced silicone products were not clinicians. So it really wasn't in their best interest to quality assure that 1 out of every 100 bottles is flowing exactly like our data shows needs to be from breast. So what we did for the very first time was actually study beyond preterm infancy lactation averages that are occurring from birth all the way to 2 years of age. And of course, breastfeeding is a very dynamic process, but before, where we had really no basis for the threshold of how holes are being poked in bottle nipples and how fast the milk should flow, what we actually have demonstrated with our microfluidic experts is there is a linear trend as the baby grows and that milk transfer from breast increases. So we have a benchmark for exactly how a product should flow in a data-driven subscription once the baby leaves the hospital. Every 2 months, they're getting sent the option to have a data-driven milk flow and have these results. And then I will just go ahead and open that up to what we're doing in phase 2. So this data here with the University of Southern California demonstrated, as I talked about, the existing costs of bottles and the implications of how fast milk is flowing and how that's actually causing really adverse health outcomes in their preterm population. And so we already have 41 interested hospitals across the United States. And what we're looking at doing in the phase 2 multi-site study is actually just taking this same IRB protocol and being able to offer the hospitals an opportunity to look under the hood. And so what it's basically saying is, hey, here's a minimally invasive IRB protocol. It actually doesn't require any human subject enrollment. What it's giving you the opportunity for at your practice settings is really get a data-driven look in terms of how are our current bottles impacting infant health outcomes and how is that impacting our budget? Because if you're losing $132,000 per infant and you don't care about the infant's health alone, that's really important budget that can go to staffing raises. It's just a massive inefficiency and waste. So this gives you the ability to go to your industry setting and say, here's our IRB protocol, here's what was found at the research partner, University of Southern California, Verdugo Hills Hospital. And also here's the opportunity to take 30 samples of the natural nipple. And if you find in your non-inferiority data, which is just a retrospective look at the EMR of how these infant feeding outcomes are impacting your facility, and you see, oh, I'm actually losing more money and we're causing more fatalities than even at USC, you have the opportunity to switch over to the natural nipple and see how that's making a difference. And so what we're really focused on right now is collaborating with physicians and clinicians and midwives from high acuity NICUs or high volume labor and delivery units, with a real emphasis on where many of the births in America are happening. So that's New York, Florida, Texas, and California. And for actually enrolling into the phase 2 multi-site, what we're looking for is dedication about 2 days a week. These aren't full-time days, from March 18th to May 20th. And what we're going to provide any clinicians that join the study is Monday or Wednesday, a 1 hour virtual training. And so this is really in response to a lot of the interest that I have received from colleagues who may have their own idea. So maybe it's beyond just wanting to disseminate this research and be involved in the publication for the phase 2 multi-site. Maybe you've had your own idea that you really wanted to see translated through this 5-year process of basically identifying an issue and then building a tailored product that gets evidence-based funding and then external funding to be able to plug it into your practice setting. And so this is optional if you actually wanted to join our BioNurture Labs program, aside from scaling the phase 2 research. But we're going to give you the most cutting edge innovation and entrepreneurship training that's adapted from the global leader in science and innovation. And then really peppering in what I have found to be so needed beyond like saying, okay, you have a great idea and you have product market fit because you've listened to your end user. Go ahead, like bring your idea to life. I wanted to really tailor in some learnings if you did decide to go the external funding route with your own idea. So upon graduation of that BioNurture Labs program, which again is elective and it's separate from if you just want to only participate in scaling the phase 2 research for publication, is at the end of our program on May 20th, you get the opportunity for an innovation grant. So you might find after the 9-week program, you really do have unique product market fit, and there's a new innovation that needs to be brought to life that's yours. So we are working with corporate sponsors to help fund those projects. And then you may decide you really love the BioNurture Labs program and you want to stay. We're giving select clinical leaders the opportunity to do that and stay on with our company. And then the third option is maybe one of these corporate sponsors really thinks that, you would be a great clinical leader for their company. And so if you're looking for a supplementary role to your clinical practice, that could be a really great option for you to help bridge gaps in innovation. And so that's in a nutshell what we're doing with the phase 2 opportunity for publication and transformational practice, as well as bringing your own ideas and innovations to life. And so with that, I really wanted to thank you for your time today. Say happy holidays, and I'm opening up any questions that you might have. I'll be here and just moderating the Q&A. I'll shut off my video for a moment. Did you guys have any questions about the program or the phase 2 research? Ah, I see. Okay. Thank you for letting me know that the chat was disabled. Oh, great question. Okay, you're going to apply by going to bynurture.co. So I'll just walk you through that process right now. You can go bynurture.co. And if you're interested, you can click learn more here. and there's a contact us form. So just go ahead and complete this. Our ask is we're really giving preference and priority to anyone who's applying by January 15th. So just go ahead and add in the notes, how you were referred, why you're interested, if it's just for the phase 2 multi-site opportunity, or if it's also for the BioNurture Lab program that we're kicking off on March 18th, 2024. Any other questions that you guys have? Oh, thank you so much for the congratulations. I really appreciate it. It's been a long journey, and I'm just really excited to empower other clinicians to take your really transformational ideas and change practice like we all wanted to do in the first place. So, if you're listening and you want to get involved and you are not in any of the high priority states listed, I would recommend that you use that same contact form and propose your idea. So perhaps you really want to test the market. I know we had some amazing midwife join that was from South Africa, and she actually educated us on explaining that, 1 in 15 women in her region actually have HIV. And so she really wanted to use the natural nipple because you couldn't breastfeed if you weren't on an antiretroviral at that time, and to make a safer option for feeding for the babies that were being given donor milk. And so if you have a project that you really want basically to see the natural nipple come alongside your region or your practice setting, and you're not in one of those high priority areas, please submit in the contact form your request for proposal, because as we're working with corporate sponsors, this is something that we can bring up to them. And I would really like to see that prioritized after we kick off the BioNurture Labs. And depending on how much sponsorship and donations we receive, we'll respond accordingly. Does that answer your question? Okay. Well, guys, you were the highlight of my day. Even though I couldn't hear your voices, I just wanted to thank you so much for your dedication to improving infant health outcomes and your interest in how we can do that through optimizing the microbiome by providing breast milk for longer. So with that, oh, we got a hand raise. Did you want to type a question out in the chat? You can go ahead and talk. You're just on mute, so go ahead if you'd like to introduce yourself and your question.
Okay, my name is Safia Kabore.
Hi, Safia, how are you?
Fine, and you?
I'm doing well. Where are you in the world?
I miss a lot of opportunity to follow the great opportunity you bring us with your great innovation. I don't have any question. I just thank you for the great innovation you've done.
Oh my goodness, that's so kind. Thank you so much. Where are you joining from today? Where are you located?
I'm in Canada.
Okay, I lived in Calgary actually for a few years.
Exactly. I miss the opportunity to do the study with you, but the next time I can join the team and we can work together.
Yeah, what I'll go ahead and do is send everybody the recording. So if you join late, you have access to be able to share not only amongst maybe your peers, but if you wanted to bring this to a clinical educator at your facility or your practice, you can definitely share the video afterwards. So when we end, I'll follow up with you. What are you at a hospital setting in Canada? Where are you working right
At
now?
the University of Montreal.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, there might be some synergy there for the phase 2 project. So I'll just go ahead and send you the recording.
Okay.
If you are interested in basically partnering with a hospital, so I know sometimes what happens is we can partner with an adjacent study if the enrollment criteria is correct. And so we
Exact.
will, exactly. So if you're working with anyone that's studying basically preterm infants, this could be a really nice collaboration and also bolster the rigor of the project. So I'll follow up via email, but thank you so much for your time and your encouragement. Did anyone
Thank
else
you.
want to share? I can give you talking permission if you raise your hand. All right, I'll go ahead and once this recording is finalized, I'll follow up with you guys by email. Zoe and Gede, it was really a pleasure as well to have you in attendance. So I look forward to hearing and hopefully seeing your applications for the program. You guys have an awesome holiday period and we'll talk soon.